Okay, today we begin with a quiet revolution, not of swords or laws, but of perception. The Stoics discovered a secret hidden in plain sight. The world cannot hurt you unless you first give it permission. Imagine two people standing in the same rainstorm. One curses the sky, the other dances in puddles. The rain is identical, only their judgments differ. This simple truth sustained Epictetus through slavery, guided Marcus Aurelius as barbarians threatened Rome, and lives today in modern psychology labs, studying how our brains process pain. Consider your most recent moment of anger or sadness. The Stoics would gently challenge. Was it truly the event that wounded you? Or the meaning you assigned to it? When a friend forgets your birthday, is the oversight itself painful, or your story about being unworthy? When stuck in traffic, is the delay frustrating, or your belief that the universe should be more efficient? We'll explore this through the carbonized scrolls of Pompeii, where citizens may have sought Stoic wisdom as Vesuvius erupted. Modern brain imaging, showing how labeling emotions physically shifts neural activity. Parallels in Zen Buddhism, where monks speak of the mind that doesn't cling. Navy SEAL training that unconsciously echoes. Stoic resilience techniques. This isn't about suppressing emotion. It's about recognizing where your suffering truly begins. Not in the world's chaos, but in the quiet space between event and reaction, where your judgments live. By the end, you'll possess a simple but profound filter. Is this pain coming from what happened, or from what I'm telling myself about what happened? The difference will change how you experience everything, from daily irritations to life's greatest challenges. Let me walk you through an ordinary morning that might feel familiar. Your alarm doesn't go off on time, and suddenly you're rushing through your routine. The coffee spills as you pour it, staining your clean shirt. Out on the road, traffic moves at a crawl, while your dashboard clock ticks relentlessly toward your meeting time. Then, it happens. A car swerves into your lane without signaling, forcing you to slam the brakes. That's when the heat rises in your chest. Your hands tighten on the wheel, and the day seems ruined before it's properly begun. This cascade of frustration illustrates what the Stoics called the discipline of assent, how we give or withhold agreement from our initial impressions. Those first flashes of irritation are natural, but what happens next determines whether we multiply our suffering. Epictetus, who endured slavery before becoming a renowned philosopher, observed that people are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. That careless driver didn't create your bad mood. Your interpretation of their action did. The story you tell yourself, they did that on purpose, or this always happens to me, transforms a simple traffic maneuver into a personal affront. Modern neuroscience reveals why this matters. When we experience frustration, our brain activates two distinct systems. The amygdala, our threat detection center, fires first with that initial jolt of adrenaline. Then, within milliseconds, the prefrontal cortex begins constructing meaning from the event. While we can't control the amygdala's automatic response, we have remarkable influence over the narratives our rational mind creates. This explains why the same traffic incident might enrage one commuter while barely registering for another. Their brains processed identical events through different filters of meaning. The ancient Stoics developed practices to work with this mental machinery. One technique called prasosh, mindful attention, helps us notice automatic judgments before they take root. Imagine applying this to our traffic scenario. Instead of immediately reacting, you might pause to consider alternative explanations. Perhaps that driver didn't see you. Maybe they're distracted by personal troubles. Or, they could simply be inexperienced. This isn't about excusing poor driving, but about preventing someone else's mistake from ruining your morning. Consider how often we construct needless suffering in daily life. A friend's delayed response to our message becomes evidence they don't care. A colleague's constructive feedback feels like a personal attack. Even weather can dictate our mood when it disrupts plans. Each time, we're not reacting to reality itself, but to our interpretation of it. The Stoics compared this to being pricked by a needle. The initial sting is unavoidable, but whether we continue suffering depends on how we relate to that pain. Cognitive behavioral therapy, developed in the 20th century, essentially rediscovered this ancient wisdom. Psychologist Albert Ellis created his ABC model showing how activating events lead to emotional consequences through our mediating beliefs. The car cutting you off does indirectly cause anger. It is your belief about intentional disrespect that generates the reaction. This framework gives us power to examine and revise the mental filters distorting our experiences. The implications ripple through every aspect of modern life. That coworker who irritates you. Their behavior only bothers you because of what you believe it means about you or your environment. The traffic jam making you late. It's your expectation about how traffic should flow that creates frustration, not the stationary cars themselves. Even significant life events, job losses, relationship endings, health concerns, derive much of their sting from the meanings we assign them. This understanding transforms how we approach challenges. When facing difficulty, we can ask, What exactly about this situation is causing me pain? The circumstance itself, or my thoughts about it? Often you will all find the narrative you've constructed. This should be happening, or this proves I am a failure, hurts more than the actual event. Recognizing this creates what psychologist Viktor Frankl called the space between stimulus and response, that crucial moment where we exercise our human capacity for choice. The practice isn't about suppressing natural emotions or pretending difficulties don't exist. It's about developing clarity regarding what's truly within our control. The traffic won't disappear because we wish it to. Other people won't always behave considerately. Equipment will fail at inconvenient times, but we can choose how we relate to these. This is the profound promise of Stoic philosophy. Not a life free from challenge, but one where challenges don't control our peace of mind. Imagine applying this awareness throughout your day. When technology frustrates you, when people disappoint you, when plans unravel, pause to notice the stories you're telling yourself. Often you'll find they contain exaggerations, assumptions. They meant to hurt me, or unrealistic expectations. Recognizing these mental patterns is the first step in loosening their grip. This approach doesn't demand perfection. Even the most practiced Stoics experience flashes of irritation or disappointment. The difference lies in what happens next, whether we feed those initial sparks into bonfires of suffering or acknowledge them as passing mental events. Over time, this creates what William Irvine calls our psychological immune system, resilience that doesn't eliminate life's difficulties, but prevents them from eliminating our equilibrium. The true test comes when facing genuine hardship, illness, loss, or betrayal. Here, Stoicism shows its depth. It doesn't suggest we shouldn't feel grief or anger, but that we can experience these emotions without being drowned by them. The same principle applies. The event itself causes pain, but our judgments about it determine whether that pain becomes suffering. This distinction makes all the difference between being shaken by life's storms and being able to stand firm within them. As you go about your week, notice how your mind interprets events. When frustration arises, experiment with asking, what exactly am I reacting to? The situation itself, or my thoughts about it? You might be surprised how often the latter proves more painful than the former. This simple awareness creates possibility, the chance to relate differently to whatever life brings, not through denial, but through clearer seeing of where your suffering truly begins and ends. The true test of any philosophy comes not when life is easy, but when it becomes unbearably difficult. Stoicism distinguishes itself precisely because it was forged in the crucible of human suffering by individuals who faced circumstances that would break most people. Consider Epictetus, the slave who became one of Stoicism's most influential teachers. His master Epaphroditus once took amusement in twisting his leg until the bone snapped. According to ancient accounts, Epictetus remained calm throughout the ordeal, simply stating, "You will break it." And when the bone gave way, adding, "Did I not tell you that you would?" This was passive resignation. It was a profound demonstration of what remains unbreakable. When everything physical is taken away, modern psychological research confirms what Epictetus embodied through his life. Adversity doesn't merely test character, it actively builds resilience. Studies on post-traumatic growth reveal that individuals often develop greater emotional strength, deeper relationships, and renewed purpose after facing significant challenges. The critical factor isn't the trauma itself, but how people process and make meaning from their experiences. This aligns perfectly with the Stoic distinction between what happens to us and how we choose to respond. Marcus Aurelius, who guided Rome through plague and warfare, captured this in his Meditations. The obstacle becomes the way. What stands in the path becomes the path. History provides compelling examples of this transformative process. The ruins of Pompeii offer particularly striking evidence. When Mount Vesuvius erupted in 79 AD, it preserved not just bodies but libraries, including collections containing Stoic texts. Archaeologists have discovered scrolls by Chrysippus, the third head of the Stoic school, in homes frozen in time. Imagine those final moments, citizens reaching for philosophy as pyroclastic flows engulfed their city. Were they seeking comfort, guidance, or perhaps practicing what Seneca called premeditation? This Stoic practice of negative visualization serves as powerful psychological preparation rather than morbid fixation. Seneca advised periodically contemplating the potential loss of possessions, status, and even loved ones. By mentally rehearsing worst-case scenarios, we achieve two important goals. We reduce the shock when difficulties actually occur, and we cultivate deeper appreciation for what we currently have. Contemporary research on stress inoculation training validates this ancient approach. Military personnel, first responders, and astronauts all train through realistic simulations, not to dwell on disaster, but to develop the capacity to respond effectively when it matters most. The U.S. Navy SEALs have even quantified this resilience, teaching recruits about the 40% rule. When you feel completely exhausted, you've typically only used 40% of your true capacity. The Stoics took this further with their concept of amor fati. While Nietzsche later popularized the phrase, its roots trace back to Cleanthes hymn de Zeus and Epictetus' teachings. This philosophy encourages us not merely to accept reality, but to embrace it actively, to see obstacles as opportunities for growth. The Japanese art of kintsugi provides a beautiful metaphor for this perspective. Broken pottery is repaired with gold lacquer, making the fractures visible rather than hiding them. Similarly, our wounds and setbacks become the places where our wisdom and strength shine most brightly. This ancient philosophy finds remarkably modern applications. In cognitive behavioral therapy for chronic pain, patients learn not to eliminate sensations, but to change their relationship to them. The pain may remain, but suffering diminishes, a direct echo of Epictetus' distinction between physical and mental experience. In the business world, studies on job crafting show that employees who reframe their work as serving others rather than just completing tasks report significantly higher job satisfaction. This mirrors Musonius Rufus' teaching that true wealth lies in having what you need for the benefit of others. Even in Silicon Valley's high-pressure environment, Stoicism has found disciples among tech entrepreneurs who face constant uncertainty and rapid change. Perhaps Stoicism's most profound modern test comes in healthcare settings. Dr. Paul Ka, the neurosurgeon who wrote When Breath Becomes Air after his terminal cancer diagnosis, embodied Stoic principles without consciously trying. Facing mortality at the peak of his career, he moved past "why me?" to ask "what now?" His memoir demonstrates how philosophy becomes most vital when medicine reaches its limits, not as mere consolation, but as a framework for finding meaning amid suffering. Contemporary palliative care increasingly incorporates this approach, helping patients focus on what remains within their control: their attitudes, their relationships, and how they choose to spend their remaining time. The common thread running through these examples is simple yet profound. Stoicism doesn't promise to remove life as hardships. It equips us to meet them with greater resilience and wisdom. When financial disaster strikes, it asks, what can this teach me about true security? When relationships fracture, how does this reveal my expectations and attachments? Even in grief, how might this loss deepen my capacity for compassion and connection? The Stoic ideal isn't someone untouched by pain, but someone who understands that, as the ancient metaphor goes, the same fire that melts butter tempers steel. As you reflect on your own challenges, whether past, present, or future, consider this essential question: how might this difficulty serve your growth rather than diminish you? Not through naive optimism, but through the disciplined practice of seeking meaning in adversity. The answers won't erase pain, but they may reveal something transformative: that within every obstacle lies an opportunity to develop virtues we didn't know we possessed, and that no external circumstance can take this possibility away from us. This represents Stoicism's most enduring gift. Not an illusion of invulnerability, but the profound understanding that while we can't always choose what happens to us, we can always choose our relationship to what happens. And in that choice, cultivated through daily practice, lies a freedom that no external force can destroy. The Stoics showed us that human resilience isn't about avoiding the storm, but about learning to find our footing within it. When we develop this capacity, we don't just survive life's challenges, we grow through them, becoming more grounded, more compassionate, and ultimately more fully human. In the year 79 AD, a mountain exhaled fire. Vesuvius, long, quiet, and brooding above the Bay of Naples, suddenly erupted with unimaginable force. In hours, the vibrant city of Pompeii, once filled with merchants, artists, and everyday routines, vanished beneath a rain of ash and stone. What was life became a sculpture of death. Bodies curled in fear, streets choked with silence. A city paused in the very act of being alive. And yet, buried within this stillness, archaeologists unearthed something extraordinary. Amid the ruins of collapsed walls and calcified monuments, they found a library. A personal one. Its charred scrolls, blackened by heat and time, contained the writings of ancient philosophers, among them the Stoics. This was not a temple, not a school. It was a private sanctuary of thought, a silent witness to a mind that once sought meaning. What kind of person turns to philosophy, not in the luxury of peace, but in the shadow of annihilation? What does it say about the human spirit that even as the world crumbles, we reach for wisdom, not just to live, but to die with clarity? These scrolls, though unreadable to the casual eye, whisper still, not through ink, but through presence. Their existence is a question. In your last moments, would you want poetry or peace of mind? Pompeii was not merely frozen in tragedy. It became a conversation across centuries between the living and the gone. And at the center of that dialogue sits a single, haunting truth. The Stoics were right. Suffering, they said, is not in the event, but in our judgment of it. The volcano did not invent fear. It revealed it. Centuries later, modern psychology would echo these ancient words. Albert Ellis, one of the founders of cognitive behavioral therapy, proposed that emotions do not stem directly from events themselves, but from the beliefs we attach to those events. This concept, known as REBT, aligns with Stoic insight, almost word for word. A volcano may erupt, a loved one may leave, a loss may come, but your response to your suffering is shaped by your interpretation. Imagine this. Two people standing in the same square of Pompeii, one frozen in terror, screaming against fate, the other sitting quietly, perhaps with a scroll in hand, breathing in ash as calmly as air. Not because they wished to die, but because they had trained the mind to meet fate with dignity. This is not myth, it is the silent power of practiced philosophy. The people of Pompeii did not choose their end, but some may have chosen their attitude toward it, and that distinction between what we control and what we do not is the essence of Stoicism. It is not about invincibility, it is about inner steadiness, a fortress built not of stone, but of understanding. Modern science now studies what ancient wisdom once intuited. Neurologists observe that the brain can be trained to pause, to reframe, to regulate emotional storms. We can interrupt panic. We can challenge catastrophic thoughts. We can become architects of resilience not by chance, but through daily mental discipline. The Stoics knew this. They wrote it in scrolls that now crumble, but whose messages remain intact in spirit. The ruins of Pompeii are more than historical artifacts. They are a mirror. We see ourselves in them. Distracted, mortal, vulnerable, yet yearning for meaning. The bakery ovens still stand. So do the ink, and next to them, philosophical texts, scorched but unbroken. We built, we ate, we read, we hoped, and then and from those ashes comes a whisper, not of fear, but of freedom, a reminder that while death comes to all, not all meet it the same. Some meet it with fists clenched, others with calm breath and clear thought. Stoicism did not promise eternal life. It promised internal order, and sometimes that is more enduring than marble. Consider how these lessons echo today. Our disasters may not be volcanic. They may arrive as job loss, a diagnosis, a betrayal, or a long, silent depression. But they come, and in their wake, the same question lingers. What do we believe about this event? What story are we telling ourselves? Is it helping us survive, or making things harder? The Stoics taught that the mind is a garden. Untended, it grows wild with fear, but nurtured through journaling, reflection, mindfulness, it becomes a refuge. In Pompeii, someone tended such a garden. They read Epictetus. They knew Marcus Aurelius. They understood that pain exists, but so does peace, and that both are internal. Albert Ellis didn't just build a theory. He built a bridge from ancient thought to modern therapy. Today, therapists guide patients through anxiety and despair by challenging irrational beliefs. They all hate me becomes I'm assuming rejection. I can't survive this becomes I can feel pain without being destroyed. This method, now backed by research, is Stoicism in psychological form. The scrolls buried in Herculaneum Novella of the Papyri still being some may contain lost works of or dialogues from Zeno. But even if we never read a single full sentence, the very presence of those texts speaks volumes. Someone, long ago, valued inner wisdom enough to keep it close even as the world cracked open. So the ash is not only a tomb, it is a vault, not only of bodhies, but of belief. It holds a record not of how people died, but how some may have faced death with courage shaped by philosophy. That idea is humbling, and also liberating. If they could do it then, under fire and smoke, what's stopping us from doing it now, under pressure and noise? The ruins tell many stories, of trade, of indulgence, of art, of panic. But they also tell a quieter one, that perhaps, as the skies darkened and the earth shook, someone sat calmly, whispering to themselves a line from Seneca or Musonius Rufus, not to escape reality, but to meet it. Because in the end, Stoicism is not about ignoring the volcano. It's about preparing your mind for the day it comes. And perhaps, like a scroll surviving flame, the calm mind survives even the worst day. Stoicism's profound echoes ripple far beyond the sun-drenched shores of the Mediterranean. Its timeless principles find surprising resonance in distant lands and diverse philosophical traditions, underscoring a universal human quest for meaning and peace. This remarkable convergence is no mere historical coincidence. It speaks to deeper, inherent truths about human nature and our shared, often challenging, struggle with adversity and the vicissitudes of life. Both Stoicism and various Eastern meditative practices, particularly those rooted in Buddhism, fundamentally recognize a crucial distinction. While pain is an inevitable facet of the human experience, and is part of living in a physical body and interacting with a dynamic world, our subsequent resistance to that pain is crucially an optional choice. This profound understanding forms the very bedrock for cultivating a lasting and deep-seated inner tranquility. regardless of one's cultural or historical context. It offers a pathway to freedom from self-imposed suffering. In 17th century Japan, the revered Zen master Bankei Yodoku articulated a profound truth that remarkably mirrored ancient Stoic wisdom. The unborn mind is undisturbed. This seemingly simple yet incredibly powerful statement held a striking parallel to the core teachings of the Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who lived many centuries earlier in the Roman Empire. Much like Epictetus, Bankei intuitively perceived human suffering not as an inherent, immutable entity that we are condemned to endure, but rather as a direct byproduct of our deep-seated attachment to transient thoughts and fleeting emotions. He meticulously emphasized that the true issue at hand lay not in the mere existence of these thoughts themselves, for thoughts will always arise, but in our often unconscious and habitual tendency to cling to them, to identify with them as if they were fixed, permanent realities, thereby inadvertently giving them undue power over our inner state and emotional well-being. On one memorable occasion, a student, visibly burdened by persistent and pervasive anxiety, approached Zen master Bankei seeking guidance and relief. Instead of offering an elaborate verbal diagnosis, a complex theoretical explanation, or a prescriptive set of instructions, Bankei simply and silently served the student a carefully prepared cup of tea. The lesson conveyed through this nonverbal act was profoundly impactful and deeply insightful. The emotion of anxiety itself wasn't a core problem, nor was it inherently bad. The fundamental issue, Bankei implicitly demonstrated, lay in the student's identification with that emotion, their mental act of fusing with it and believing it to be an inseparable part of their essential self. When we fully embody our anxieties, treating them as fixed components of our identity, we inadvertently empower them, allowing them to exert dominant control over our inner landscape and peace of mind, thus perpetuating a cycle of distress. This striking convergence of philosophical thought and psychological insight between ancient Stoicism and Zen Buddhism is not a mere historical fluke. It serves as compelling evidence of a deep understanding of the human condition that transcends geographical and temporal boundaries. Both traditions, despite their distinct geographical origins and historical unequivocally emphasize the critical importance of skillfully differentiating between pain, which is an unavoidable, often natural physiological or psychological response to external or internal stimulants. Suffering arises specifically from our resistance to that pain, our refusal to accept the present reality as it is, and our tenacious clinging to circumstances or outcomes that are ultimately beyond our direct control. This crucial distinction, when truly grasped, offers a profoundly liberating perspective to the individual. Within Stoic philosophy, the concept of memento mori stands as a powerful, consistent, and frequently revisited reminder of life's inherent finitude and fragility. Far from being a morbid or pessimistic contemplation designed to induce gloom, this practice is in fact a potent psychological tool carefully designed to foster a profound appreciation for each fleeting moment and to systematically liberate oneself from unnecessary anxieties and trivial concerns about the future. By regularly and consciously reflecting on the inevitability of death, Stoics aim to live more fully, consciously focusing on their inner virtues, ethical conduct, and rational thought, thereby not being unduly shackled by the fear of loss, understanding that all external possessions and circumstances are ultimately temporary. And in parallel to this, in various Tibetan Buddhist traditions, the contemplation of impermanence is a core and transformative meditative practice. The teaching emphasizes that all phenomena, all things, all sensations, and indeed all thoughts are inherently impermanent, constantly changing, in a state of flux, and ultimately destined to dissolve and cease to be. Deeply reflecting on impermanence helps practitioners to clearly recognize that nothing in the phenomenal world is truly everlasting, from which follows the wisdom to skillfully release their attachment to both joyful and sorrowful experiences, to successes and failures alike. Both memento mori and the contemplation of impermanence, though expressed differently, serve a common purpose: to ritualize acceptance, embedding this crucial understanding deeply into one's spiritual and philosophical practice, making it an intuitive way of being. Both traditions, though approaching through different pathways and employing distinct terminologies, ultimately converge on the same crucial realization: the necessity of actively dissolving the pervasive illusion of control. Human beings possess an almost instinctive and often overwhelming craving for absolute control over their lives, their external circumstances, and even their own internal emotional states. However, both Stoicism and Eastern meditation teach, with compelling consistency, that this insatiable craving for absolute control is fundamentally at odds with the true, dynamic nature of reality. By systematically letting go of what cannot genuinely be controlled, the external world, the unpredictable actions of others, the inevitable onset of pain or loss, and instead, redirecting one's focus squarely onto what unequivocally lies within one's sphere of influence, one's own judgments, responses, and perceptions, true freedom and resilience begin to emerge, offering a profound sense of agency amidst life's uncertainties. Even in the contemporary realm of modern therapy, the practice of mindfulness stands as a remarkably influential and widely adopted secular cousin to these ancient meditative and philosophical traditions, rooted in Buddhist meditation techniques but carefully stripped of its specific religious or spiritual tenets. Mindfulness teaches individuals the crucial and liberating skill of observation without reaction. It actively encourages a non-judgmental awareness of thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations precisely as they arise in the present moment, but crucially, without immediate engagement, analysis, or attempts to suppress them. By simply observing these internal experiences, rather than resisting, clinging to, or identifying with them, individuals learn to create a vital and spacious gap between themselves and their internal phenomena. This newly cultivated space allows for a more considered, less impulsive, and ultimately less reactive response to life's myriad challenges, fostering greater emotional regulation, whether gleaned from the insightful and reflective pages of Seneca's profound philosophical journals, absorbed through the enigmatic and often paradoxical depths of Zen koans, or discovered in the practical exercises of modern mindfulness. The core message remains striking and beautifully universal. Suffering significantly shrinks when we consciously cease to feed it with elaborate, self-reinforcing narratives. It is often our stories about pain, our rigid judgments, our expectations, our interpretations, and, most importantly, our profound resistance to what is that amplify a mere physical or emotional discomfort into pervasive, debilitating suffering. By cultivating a disciplined attitude of radical acceptance, compassionate, non-judgment, and mindful observation, we effectively dismantle the very psychological mechanisms that perpetuate our emotional distress, thereby stepping into a profound space of greater clarity, resilience, and an enduring inner peace that can withstand the storms of life. Today's world brims with emotional landmines. A single headline, a comment online, or a silent phone screen can send ripples through our minds. Social media provokes outrage with engineered precision, while algorithms push us toward envy, urgency, and distraction. Notifications buzz like tiny alarms, pulling us away from peace and into comparison, insecurity, or reactivity. Yet in this overstimulated atmosphere, the ancient voice of Stoicism doesn't fade. It grows louder, offering, not escape, but clarity. It reminds us, you may not control the world, but you can command yourself. At the heart of Stoicism lies a powerful insight. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychologist, famously said that within this space lies our freedom and growth. It is not always long, it's a flicker, but in that moment, we can pause. And in pausing, we can choose. Not from instinct, not from fear, but from intention. This space is small, but it contains everything that matters. This space is often overlooked. The modern world rushes us scrolling, reacting, replying. We're nudged to speak before thinking, to judge before understanding, to act before calming. The Stoic teaches the opposite. Slow down, think, ask questions. Is this mine to control? Is this emotion helpful? Do I need to react, or can I observe and let go? Take something simple. A short, curt message from a friend. The sting may come instantly, but the spiral that follows doubt, offense, anxiety is optional. You don't need to follow that path. Stoicism helps us recognize that inner voice and gently redirect it, not with suppression, but with wisdom. Not by pushing feelings away, but by putting them in their rightful place. To strengthen this internal space, the Stoics used mental training. One of their most practical tools was premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of misfortunes. This is not pessimism. It is not worrying for worry's sake. It's rehearsal, visualizing obstacles calmly before they arrive. Imagining difficulty, not to create fear, but to soften its blow. When the challenge comes, you've already shaken its hand in your mind. By mentally preparing for setbacks, lost items, delayed plans, criticism, we build resilience. Nothing surprises us. Nothing breaks us. We respond not from panic, but from presence. Like sailors who practice in calm seas, so they're ready when the storm comes. We become steady minds in a shifting world. Another essential Stoic habit is journaling. Not a diary of daily events, but a deep what did I believe today without question? What moved me emotionally? What judgments did I hold? By writing, we create distance between ourselves and our reactions. We become observers. This small act of reflection helps us see clearer, live slower, and respond with more care. Even modern elite performers understand this. U.S. Navy SEALs, in their mental training, use Stoic-like pain is not punishment. Fear is not failure. Stress becomes signal. They do not merely toughen the body. They train the mind to master perception, turning discomfort into discipline. This is Stoicism in action. You cannot control the waves, but you can control how you surf them. Importantly, Stoicism does not demand that we become emotionless. It does not ask us to silence our hearts. Instead, it asks us to lead them wisely. To feel anger, but not lash out. To feel fear, but not freeze. To hold grief, but not drown. Emotions are natural, but the wise person does not become their servant. They listen, they learn, then they choose. This kind of composure is radical in our era. When outrage is currency, composure becomes rebellion. When speed is rewarded, slowness becomes power. Stoicism helps us resist being pulled in every direction. It returns us to center. It gives us language to name our discomfort and tools to navigate it. It helps us protect what matters most. Our attention. Marcus Aurelius spoke of the art of acquiescence, a graceful acceptance of what is outside our control. This isn't passive surrender. It's intelligent alignment. It's knowing what belongs to you and what does not. Like a sculptor, learning the nature of the stone, we work with what life gives us, not against it. We don't waste energy trying to control the uncontrollable. We focus on our choices, our values, our effort. This art of letting go frees us. When we stop fighting reality, we gain power, not over the world, but over ourselves. We stop flailing in resentment and instead move with purpose. We conserve energy. We respond with clarity. We live with intention, not instinct. And that shift, though quiet, is transformative. Stoicism is especially needed now. In a digital world that manipulates emotion, triggers reactions, and monetizes attention, it offers a compass. It teaches us how to navigate the overload, to protect our minds, to remain whole in a world designed to divide us. It reminds us, we are not machines built to react. We are humans, made to reflect. The lines between virtual and physical life are fading. Notifications bleed into our meals. Comments linger in our thoughts. The world never truly goes silent. But Stoic practice can reintroduce stillness, a silent pause, a morning meditation, an evening journal. These are not indulgences. They are acts of defense, shields for the inner world. The goal of Stoicism is not to escape life, but to meet it fully, calmly, wisely. It's the strength to say, yes, this is happening, but I choose what it means. I choose how to meet it. This is not avoidance. It's authorship. You may not write every event in your story, but you write the response. And in doing so, you write who you are becoming. So when the world overwhelms, when the news outrages, the inbox explodes, or the silence becomes too loud, remember this. You have the space. You have the choice. You can pause. You can reflect. You can respond from wisdom, not reflex. That is the Stoic shield, and it is always within reach. When someone wounds you not with a weapon, but a word, a glance, a silesu may feel your breath quicken, your muscles tighten. In that very moment, you are offered a choice, not to strike back, not to defend your pride, but to pause. And in that pause, ask quietly, what part of me is hurting? What belief has been touched? Because not all pain is from the world outside. Some of it grows from the stories we've long carried within. Epictetus never told us to run from discomfort. He never promised that life would be gentle, but he whispered something more enduring. Do not hand your peace over to others. If someone throws a stone into your still pond, let the ripples pass. Let them fade. You are not the stone. You are the stillness beneath. We live in a world that moves quickly, speaks loudly, reacts instantly. But stillness is not weakness, and reflection is not retreat. The Stoic mind does not hide. It holds space, it breathes, it waits, it chooses. And in choosing, it regains control not over others, not over outcomes, but over the only territory that truly belongs to us. Our response? You cannot stop the wave. No one can, not Marcus Aurelius, not Seneca, not you. But you can learn to ride it with grace, not through force, but through understanding, by accepting what is, without collapsing beneath it, by witnessing your own emotions as clouds drifting through sky. They move, you remain. What the Stoics offer is not a shield against reality, but a compass within it, a quiet center in a noisy world. When others shout, you may whisper. When others rage, you may rest. And in doing so, you do not lose Ravar, you return to yourself, to a calm that was always yours to reclaim. So tonight, as you lay your head down, remember this. The world may spin wildly. The news may shout. The future may feel uncertain. But inside you, there is still a space untouched by chaos. A clearing in the forest. A quiet in the storm. That place is always there, waiting, beneath the noise, beneath the thought, beneath even the name you call yourself. You are not your anger. You are not your anxiety. You are not even your past. You are the one watching, the one breathing, the one who can, in any moment, choose again. And that is the true power of a Stoic mind. Thank you for walking this journey with us. See you in the next meditation.